it's time to heal and feel, be real. You just gotta take your time, unwind and chill. Cause now it's time to love yourself. Build emotional and mental health. Cause Black woman, it's time to heal and feel, be real.
Y'all, we're back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast. But today it's just myself and Myra, your favorite co-hosts. But this episode, we're gonna have a good little time, a nice little tea kiki, but a very important topic, and it keeps coming up. So I was just telling Myra, I listened to a podcast. Snap, I forgot the podcast name. I'm gonna link it probably in the description just because she is dope. But basically, she had this episode on like how a lot of times women will forgive a man, not even their man necessarily, just a man, but not forgive their friends, specifically women friends. And so I wanted to bring this to the table. I think this is an important topic, and I'm wondering if we can talk about this and maybe give some tips on how to maneuver through this. So Myra, what are you thinking?
Oh, you're making me. I don't know why my brain is going here, but I'm thinking about situationships. And the reason why I'm pointing on situationships because it seems like that's when people are the most forgiving, which is like crazy. And so I'm just thinking about different conversations I've had with friends, my experiences, and I feel like I keep coming to the idea of Black women worrying about being alone, and that being the reason
Mhm.
why we're so forgiving, especially in like these situationships, right? Thinking that it's going to be something even before because it could become something, yes. But being so forgiving before it is something, because one, the hope that this might be your person, right? Like this relationship might work out, even though we don't even have a relationship. And now, even more so, like the thought of Black women who are educated really not getting somebody. Like, if we want to talk about it, men and women relationships, really not getting a man. And so, I don't know. My brain keeps ending up there because that's where I see it the most. The women who I'm in conversation with that are like, I don't want to be alone. Like, I want to have somebody. Or them noticing that, like, over time. I don't know. My brain just keeps going there. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. I think this topic came up a long time for me. I was talking to a friend who constantly let a man who was doing her dirty, dragging her across the floor dirty, like just
Oh,
dogging her out, you know. And then she'll be like, "I'm not talking to him. I'm not talking to him." She'll block him. She'll do all the things, and then next thing you know, he's back. It's like, how is he back? But something that I realized and something she pointed out was she'll be like, "Well, he called me blocked. He popped up at my house. Like he did all of these things to get back in." Versus when women usually are no longer with friends, other women friends, we're usually not doing those things. Like if you decided not to be my friend today, I'm not most likely gonna pop up at your house weeks later being like, "Hey, we need to talk about this." I'm
yeah.
most likely not. I might call you one time. I'm not gonna keep calling you. I'm not calling you blocked. You're not getting that out of me. But I also, me personally, I wouldn't do that for a man either, if that makes sense. Like I'm not doing all of that in general. When people decide to walk out of my life, depending on the friend, like I said, you might get one call out of me. I might try. It depends on what's going on too, because I might even come over your house if I did something wrong to you. Like I accept accountability, but let's say it's just I didn't do anything and you're just treating me wrong. I'm not going to do the most. But I say that to say I think her point was it's because he's persistent, which is messed up, right? It's actually very manipulative in a sense of why does someone have to be persistent to get back in your life? Why is that person forgiven?
Because I think it goes back to like attachment too. Like we as people, whether we like to admit it or not, we like to see that somebody no matter what they want us, no matter what circumstances that is. And I think until your attention is drawn to that, you're going to keep trying to go towards it when it's coming at you. because it's that idea of like, oh, this person really loves and cares about me. Like, let me try. But
Mm.
I think when you were talking about situational, I think it should be situational. Like, what was the reasoning why this thing ended or why it's not working out? And the same thing with friendships. But something else was coming up as you were sharing. It's making me think about how when friends are going through certain things, how oftentimes people are like, oh, they acting funny, they acting different.
Mm.
And I saw this TikTok, y'all. I hope y'all saw it too. It was beautiful. But basically, this lady had just had this baby and she's home by herself. And she basically told her friends she didn't want to talk to them. She blocked them. And so they were like, something don't seem right. Like, you just had a baby. We're not about to cut you off, because basically she wanted them to cut her off. And they showed up to her house blasting Girl by Destiny's Child, throwing rocks at her window. And I think she had like yelled for them to like get away from her house or something. And they were like, no. So they broke into her house and she was literally like in the room. I think she like locked herself in like a closet or something like that, and she's going through it with the baby. And the people in the comments were like, you gonna wake up her child? Like, why are you doing all that? And they responded, they were like, yes, we woke up her child, but we protected that child and let her get some rest because she was going through it. But that is like the perfect example of when somebody's going through something and you feel like it's a you problem or it's like a friendship problem. Circumstances, y'all, circumstances. But if a
Jeez.
man did that, I bet you'd be like, let's go pull up and see where he at, what he doing, right? But it's literally the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. The circumstances. I think sometimes, and see, like for that, like it is, at least for me, I'm definitely more understanding to a woman who has birthed a child because I know a little bit more about it. I
Yeah.
recognize there's postpartum, like it's all types of things that come with a child. Like I've watched several of my friends have children and relationships with people fall off. And it's because people don't understand how to navigate the transition that happens once a woman has a child. So
Exactly. Yep.
I think for me it's a soft spot. So the child thing, fair enough.
Hmm.
But other spots, maybe not. Like meaning I have had situations where a friend is going through something. I explain to them like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm trying. I've tried to be there for them and I keep trying and I feel like that they're not allowing me in
Yeah.
and I fall back.
Yeah.
I have had that.
But I've also been the friend that's been like, you gonna let me in. Like, I wanna know what's going on. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna get your family's contact information. I'm gonna do all the things.
Eh,
Also been burned in the end because why was
eh,
I doing all that when they didn't want me to do it?
I
And
was just
those are the exact reasons why the friendship ended, because I was doing my all to show up and you told me you didn't want me to show up like that. And so I get it now. Not everybody matches in those ways. But again, going back to like forgiving partners and things like that, I think these are all reminders of how you can have all these little situations with friends and be like so cool off of it. But you could have the slightest incident with the men that's hurt you so much where you're not forgiving, right?
definitely. My motto is it's standards for everybody around here. Whether you my friend or you a romantic partner, it's standards. Everybody knows it doesn't matter.
It has to be.
So I need my friends to show up for me. I need the man to show up for me. And
Yes.
if the man doesn't show up for me, like if I have to remove myself from a relationship, um, then I do. Like it's their standards, you know. No one just gets to do whatever. Like fair, like be yourself. But when I say their standards, meaning like there's work in both relationships, right? So a lot of times people feel like friendships, there's no work that's there. But it's work to be my friend specifically. Maybe some people feel like, oh, it don't matter. Like, no, like it's important to me. And if when I'm in a relationship, is work there too, because it's important to me. And thinking of that, I had a guy I was dating and they asked me like if it was between like a friend and them, what would I do or whatever. I'm like, well, like if both of them were in a situation, I was like, it depends on the situation, right? If my friend is if my friend is in an emergency or needs to talk to me, but we going on a date, I'm gonna talk to my friend because I have standards in my friendship. Like that's
And if
me
you
putting the
serious, but the
energy.
man is gone, who gonna still be there?
That's a y'all. When I tell you, I tell all my friends that I always say most likely that man is not going to be there forever.
Yeah,
Especially if we're thinking about in today's time, many
right.
times relationships, and we're speaking in men and women, but any type of relationship, however you identify, if you identify as, homosexual, pansexual, whatever, many times when it comes to romantic partners, it's not looking like forever at this point.
Right.
Sometimes it is, which I think is great. But your friends usually are there and they outlive that relationship typically with the
And even if
romantic
you kind of
partner.
pass away, who's gonna be there to support you through that?
Ooh,
It would
that's a
still
whole
be
nother
the friends. That's why I keep coming back to the friends part, because it's like through life transitions and changes, which definitely happens. Let's be honest, right? Like it's still gonna be the friends that you will hope to have been there, and that's why you really got to nurture and water your friendships.
yeah. Which brings me to forgiveness in general, right? So if we're thinking of um, typically men being forgiven that women are dealing with romantically, are they really forgiving them? Or like you just said earlier, is it just because sometimes women we feel lonely,
Yeah.
especially like you said, these situationships, especially if you're getting older, you have like these times and all of this. Do you just accept anything just because you're like, I want this thing and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to have it again?
I feel like it's
Are
like a
you
mixed bag. I don't know, because I think about like, for me, I am somebody who, if you really hurt me, and I feel like there are like few things that'll really hurt me, but if you hit those things, you're probably not ever truly forgiven. Like I feel like time
hmm,
will change the intensity and how I feel about it, and it'll change just overall. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like forgiveness can be on a percentage for me. Like I feel like I could 80% forgive you, but you piss me the fuck off, and that 20% is gonna come out, and it's gonna be like you don't forget that you hurt me. Right? Something I'm trying to work on though, because who wants to be talking about how you hurt me 10 years ago? I decided to still be here with you. But
fair enough? Yeah.
it be there, right? Like it's not something that's steadily on my mind, but if you push me to think about it, it's gonna come up. So I don't know that people truly forgive, but I do feel like it's possible. I just don't feel like it's me. I feel like I got a percentage on it. Yeah, I honestly do. I feel like I have a percentage on it, because I just think about like instances, even like with my parents, things that they've done, that like if they push me too much, that little 20% is gonna come up. I'm telling y'all. I 80% forgive.
Yeah. That's hard because I do feel like I'm a person once I've decided to forgive you. Um, and again, like if you're gonna come back in my life, there are usually things like we're gonna talk about it and we're
Mhm.
gonna talk about ways that how we're gonna improve it, right?
Right.
And once we have those things in place, then I give people a clean slate.
Yeah.
I try to because at that point it is like you just said, like, have you really forgiven them? If I say I forgive you, I feel like I have to lead in that essence. It's not to say something won't trigger me, but it's to say like I'm going to try because that's different stage of healing. Meaning at the beginning it might be that 20% that comes out, but my goal is for it to get less and less. Where if you do something, I'm not thinking of what you did, but
Yeah.
more so what's happening in that moment.
Yes.
But it is important to like you can't act oblivious though, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that you have to forget, if it makes sense. People say forget and forgive. I don't think you
Mm.
forget, but I do think it is a certain like freedom that comes when you truly forgive someone and you move forward.
Yeah. I agree. I also am curious, like your thoughts about like forgiving yourself, because I feel like that's not something that's oftentimes like talked about. Of like when you do something that's like fucked up, and just like how you sit with it, and even how you choose the relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
Because again, we're talking about forgiving friends versus forgiving men. But I'm even thinking about like, what does forgiveness of self look like, and choosing the relationship with self overall, because that could be hard. It could be so
Yeah.
easy to forgive others, but never forgive yourself.
Yeah, that internal work is difficult. I think for me personally, because I have had a friend where, um, I had some doings in the end of the friendship, and for me, I think the first step is holding accountability.
Sure.
Like, even if not completely forgiving yourself, it's being able to say, like, "Dang, I
Yeah.
was I was wrong in that. Like, this was my part."
Yeah.
And not sugarcoating it. Not a, but it was this, but it was that. But they did this to me. I was wrong.
Yeah.
It don't matter what they did to me. I was wrong for that. And so I think that's the first step. And then the forgiveness piece, like you kind of saying, it does take some time, but you're human. We grow. Um, when I look back and I think of stuff that I said 10 years ago that I truly believed in, like stand 10 toes down, like, no, I really believe this. And now I don't believe it. It just goes to show, like, our healing is where we're at when we're there, right?
Yeah.
So I have to forgive myself. I'm not even that same person no more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all that Donika just said can be applied to any relationship. I think that whenever you're thinking about how you want to maneuver through a relationship with someone, you have to ask yourself the same things. So when you're thinking about what does it look like to forgive a man, a partner, what does it look like to forgive a friend, ask yourself, what does it look like to forgive myself? If you're like, what will love look like moving forward? Ask yourself, what does love mean to me? And how can I, make sure that these relationships meet that? And so everything that you just said, I think was perfect, especially when you said, like, well, I was 10 years ago is not who I am now. The same thing can be said for your friends and your partner. The person that they were 6 months ago is not who they are now, because we're forever changing. And for me personally, I do the three strikes. Like, you got three times.
Mhm.
Because the first time I told you, we talked about it. The second time, you're still learning. Let's figure it out. The third time, you ain't got it. You messed it up. That's your problem. Goodbye.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, how do you know when you are ready to forgive? If you are. And so you said three strikes. I like
Mhm.
that because I don't have a number. It's whenever I feel like it.
Ah, see,
It's
if I
when
feel like it, I feel like I wouldn't be being fair to people, because there have been some people where I'm just like, you did this thing and you've been getting on my nerves lately, so you cut off. Whereas there's this person where it's like, you ain't really been getting on my nerves, you ain't did too much, but you
but
did the same degree as the other person did, but I'm holding on
Mhm.
to it because maybe you didn't get on my nerves recently. So that's why for me, I have to be like, okay, the three strikes. If it's because again, I measure it by if we've talked through it. Okay, you still applying it, and then the third one, like, you're not getting it. We adults, we too grown.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, it's so complex, but I like that. Um, yeah, I think this was a good episode. You have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, my last thing I want to add is, when you think about forgiveness of parents, if you feel like it's just not working, it's okay to break ties. I feel like that's just the main thing that most people like struggle with, family, parents. It's okay to have some distance. Don't think of, because you guys are related by blood, that you have to hold on to it. You don't.
Baby, that's another episode. That's gonna be our
That's all I got.
that's gonna be our part two. Next, forgiveness of parents, forgiveness or not of parents, because absolutely that piece, you don't have to you don't have to hold on to family members, including parents. But I do think that deserves its own episode because, like, it's complex trying to figure out how to do that, right? Um,
Yeah.
so if I had to summarize this episode, some tips and skills that it sounds like Myra and I myself have came up with is, um, one, have you forgiven yourself, right? And to do that, it takes accountability, but it also takes grace, and sometimes it takes time. So have you forgiven yourself? Um, two, what are the different reasons? What's going on? Like, have you measured? Is this the third time? Is this thing something, one of my deal breakers that you've told them two, three times? So you're measuring, like, what is the thing? Um, what else am I missing?
I think
We
that's
talked
it.
about okay. Yeah. And getting to forgiveness. Like if you do decide to forgive the person, it's kind of the same things that you would do for yourself as far as the forgiveness, meaning like you have to give them time. You want to talk about it. You don't want to act like nothing didn't happen. Don't do that now.
Please don't do that.
Hold accountability. Have your people hold accountability. Make a plan. Um, yeah, and move forward. Try your best. That's
That
all you
you're
can really
human.
do.
Yeah, honor
And
that you're human and that they're human.
and if you're gonna forgive that man, forgive that friend.
Friend. That was cute.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next Monday.